Good evening, football fans. Welcome back to Eclipse. If you don't remember what's happened so far, that's fine because nothing has happened so far. So there's nothing to remember. We are on chapter 8. Basically, there's people getting killed in Seattle. There's some mysterious vampire hanging around Bella and the Cullens. And nobody's really that asked because everybody's been far more concerned with the love triangle that I'm still not convinced actually exists. Bella and Jacob are on the beach at La Push having a heart to heart because he kidnapped her from school in one of the most romantic moments in the entire series, I'll admit. Jacob asks her not to go back because obviously she's basically being held hostage by the vampires at this point. And Jacob wants Bella to have at least some autonomy. And Bella says Charlie would love that, and Jacob says I bet he wouldn't mind, obviously in regards to her staying with Jacob. Charlie has been very encouraging of a relationship with Jacob. He thinks that she should give Jacob a chance. Obviously, Bella's very set in her ways, so it's not really made much of a difference to her. Bella agrees, but says internally, I wondered if you would feel the same if you knew the choice was really between vampires and werewolves. As in, Charlie wouldn't want her hanging around with either of these guys if he knew that they were actually dangerous mythological creatures. But the fact of the matter is, I still think Charlie would rather have her hang around with Jacob because he knows Jacob personally and knows that Jacob isn't dangerous. And even the stereotypical idea of what humans think of as vampires and werewolves, you would still probably rather a werewolf date your daughter because he only turns into a werewolf once a month, so she can stay away from him then. And werewolves don't necessarily eat humans, whereas vampires definitely do drink blood. So I think that Charlie would choose Jacob in any life, but that's just my opinion. There's more imprint talk. Luckily, there are no children involved this time. Instead, you get the feeling that Jacob really, really wants to be imprinted with Bella, but he knows he's not. It's not just because he has an unhealthy obsession with Bella, it's because at least he knows that he is actually attracted to Bella and actually likes her, that he actually has chemistry with this girl, instead of at some point in the future the universe just deciding that he has to be with the girl because of genetics and him never knowing if he truly does like her in his heart or whether it's just his werewolf instinct that's making him like this girl. It's actually this really sad, poignant moment that's ruined by the fact that it's narrated by Bella Swan. Jacob explains that one of the other members of the pack, the werewolf pack, has imprinted on Emily's niece, who happens to be like 3 years old. Bella's in shock, obviously, and Jacob hastily tries to explain to her that this is not in fact grooming by saying these things. But she's a baby, I protested. He looked at me with dark amusement. Quill's not getting any older, he reminded me, a bit of acid in his tone. He'll just have to be patient for a few decades. Once again, I remind you all that Stephanie Meyer did not have to write this. But she did this to herself, and the conversation continues as if the hole is not deep enough already. Stephanie Meyer is here with her shovel. Jacob says, there's nothing romantic about it at all. Not for Quill, not now. You become whatever she needs you to be, whether that's a protector or a lover, a friend or a brother. And then, when she's grown up, they'll be as happy as Emily and Sam. That's grooming. That's just grooming, Stephanie. Fuck me, I'm moving on. But why wouldn't she choose him in the end? He'll be her perfect match, like he was designed for her alone. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but in the end, when this guy's been around for her entire life and has basically proved himself to be perfect for her in every way, it's like she's been so beaten down by that point, by his persistence, that she just says yes to him, I guess. And obviously, the universe, fate, Stephanie Meyer herself, all want this girl to be with this guy, so it's just going to happen regardless. It's scary. Imagine being a character in a Stephanie Meyer book and just having all of your autonomy slowly stripped away from you as the narrative goes on. That is the real horror of Twilight, my friends. At the end of this horrible, horrible conversation, this happens. Jacob says, I'll never see anyone else, Bella. I only see you. Even when I close my eyes and try to see something else. Ask Quill or Embry, it drives them all crazy. Because obviously the wolves can read each other's minds when they're in wolf form. I think that is actually so sweet and lovely. It's almost like this goodbye from Jacob being like, I know I'm not imprinted on you, but like, know that the love that I felt for you was real. When I doubt like the validity of the love that I will feel for the person I eventually imprint on, even if there's nothing I can do to stop it. it's horrifying and it's romantic as hell. And Stephanie Meyer has completely ruined it by making it about Renesmee, because the only reason that Jacob feels this way about Bella is because the egg, the egg that will eventually create Renesmee is residing somewhere in her fallopian tubes right now. Shut up, everyone. Let's move on from this conversation. Eventually, Bella does go back, and Edward's pretty chill about it. Goes to bed together in the Cullen house, and Bella is mad horny, and she tries to have sex with Edward, and he tells her not to be ridiculous. I know. He's like stifling her sexuality, right? But she's also pressuring him, so there's like a nuanced conversation to be had there. And yes, I can't help but simply find it hilarious that every time Bella tries to get a little bit hot and heavy with Edward, he's like, Bella, put your clothes back on, you you horrendous slut. I can't believe you would be so ridiculous in the face of such danger. Edward says, I decided that you were right. My problem before was more about my prejudice against werewolves than anything else. I'm going to try to be more reasonable and trust your judgment. If you say it's safe, then I'll believe you. And, more importantly, I'm not willing to let this drive a wedge between us. Which is really, really very mature of Edward. And, you know, props to him. We've got to give him credit where it's due. This man does say all the right things. We'll see if he follows it up with changed behaviour in the future. I think the reason we're supposed to forgive Edward for lapses in judgment like this is because he's like old and old-fashioned, and so he doesn't necessarily think of women as people who can handle themselves, and maybe thinks of them as like pets that need to be coddled, or like children, you know what I mean? Especially as we already know that he thinks of Bella as a child anyway because of the age difference. So you kind of have to forgive him for being a little bit protective of her, especially in moments like this when he realizes that it's not the healthiest thing, and like takes accountability for his dumb actions in regards protecting Bella. Okay, so the last note that I have for chapter 9 is just WTF, and it is regarding this. The reason Rosalie had given me for blah 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 blah. Bella, you read the classics. What kind of fucked up grammar is this? It's not even, it's in the narration. It's not even in speech. And it feels just really weird and really out of context. And it's just a weird way to write it anyway, especially with such a weird name as Rosalie. So I just wanted to share that all with you. I thought it was strange. And now we'll move on to chapter 9. I say we'll move on to chapter 9, but I haven't made any notes for chapter 9 because basically the only thing of interest that happens in chapter 9 is that this a new mystery vampire breaks into Bella's house and steals one of her shirts. And they just know that they've been there based on scent. We don't know anything about them. And nobody has any intelligent guesses. So we are left in the dark. Chapter 10. Bella wants to go to La Push. I think it's to go to the bonfire thing where she gets to hear more of the wolf legends. She kind of comes to Edward to ask for his permission. Edward says that she doesn't have to ask. And Bella thinks, I tried to understand what he wanted, tried to push out of my mind the yearning I felt to go to La Push so that I wouldn't be swayed by my own wishes. Which basically, for the uninitiated, means that Bella was trying to put aside her own feelings, wants, and needs in order to accommodate Edward's, which is the opposite of what Edward wants her to do, because Edward's actively trying to be a good boyfriend right now. And is just bad feminism, I guess, to reiterate a point that I've been hammering on since I started these fucking reviews. So Bella is going to push. That's decided by the responsible adults in the room, i.e. Stephanie Meyer and Edward. Has nothing to do with Bella or her own autonomy. Edward says he's going to help her get over there, and when they go out into the yard, Edward has bought himself a big shiny motorbike to go along with the one that Bella fixed up last book. Edward's expression was casual. He seemed determined to blow it off. Well, I didn't know if you were going to forgive your friend or he you, and I wondered if you would still want to ride your bike anyway. It sounded like it was something that you enjoyed. I thought I could go with you if you wished. I actually love Edward for this. Like, he doesn't approve of Bella being on the bike at all, but he hears about how much she enjoys it and gets himself a bike to like go along and do it with her because he doesn't think that she's speaking to Jacob anymore. I just find it really cute, and it shows this effort from Edward that I really think we needed from him in this part of the book, because I really was not batting for Edward last time, if you remember, because he was being a prick. In response to this actually really moving and touching move from Edward, Bella only has to say, I stared at the beautiful machine. Beside it, my bike looked like a broken tricycle. I felt a sudden wave of sadness when I realised that this was not a bad analogy for the way I probably looked next to Edward. I wouldn't be able to keep up with you, I whispered. Edward tried to push the corner of my mouth up. I'd keep pace with you, Bella. That wouldn't be much fun for you. Of course it would, if we were together. I bit my lip and imagined it for a moment. Edward, if you thought I was going too fast or losing control of the bike or something, what would you do? He hesitated, obviously trying to find the right answer. I knew the truth. He would find some way to save me before I crashed. So, first of all, she doesn't even say thank you. She doesn't even acknowledge that it was this really thoughtful thing of him to do, and immediately makes it about her own insecurities. Basically telling him without so many words that he wouldn't be fun to do this activity with, which is actually a really mean thing to say to a partner, especially to Edward, who's going to have conniptions about it for the next 5 to 10 years. I was really feeling the warm fuzzies for Edward this chapter, and I was like, let's look it up again. I can understand why I liked him so much in my youth. And then he goes to drop Bella off to Jacob, and he sighed and leaned towards me. I turned my face up for a goodbye peck, but Edward took me by surprise, fastening his arms tightly around me and kissing me with as much enthusiasm he had in the garage. Before long, I was gasping for air, and he does this in front of Jacob to make him jealous and to basically mark his territory. And I think that's gross. Chapter 11 is the campfire with the werewolves. I was correct. Bella gets to sit and listen to some of the legends of the old tribe, which, as if she needed more encouragement, gives her the inspiration to sacrifice herself to save everybody else later. And that's not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is the way that Bella describes Leah Clearwater, who is the first and only known female werewolf. Looking at the perfection of Leah's features, I couldn't help but compare them to Emily's ruined face. What did Leah think of Emily's scars now that she knew the truth behind them? Did it seem like justice in her eyes? I hate everything about this. Obviously, the backstory is that Sam left Leah for Emily, and now Emily's part of the pack, so there's that whole awkwardness there, and the whole beginning of Leah Clearwater being the most done dirty character in the whole Twilight series, but we'll get there. The fact that Bella looks at Leah and assumes that Leah's such a terrible person that thinks Leah probably likes the fact that Emily has been horribly scarred by Sam, because it's like justice for the fact that she stole her boyfriend. As if that is... Yeah, oh my god. Let's just not get into that discussion right now. Also, there's just a weirdness there describing the perfection of Leah's features against Emily's ruined face. It's just such a horrible way to describe someone, especially someone who's been through something so terrible and it's left them so... Like, Emily's had to struggle through that. And just because she's maybe not over it, but just because she's come to terms with it now and Bella didn't have to see that struggle, Bella's like, oh, well... Girl's just got a ruined face. Girl's just hideous, I guess. Like, that is pretty much the only interesting thing about this chapter for me. I like the stories that the werewolves tell, but the fact that I know where they're going and I know what Bella does with this information just leaves me feeling exhausted. In chapter 13, we're back on the wedding shit, and Edward kind of gets upset because he thinks that Bella doesn't want to marry him. And Bella doesn't want to get married, but it's not that she doesn't want to marry Edward. She does someday, I guess, but just not right out of high school. Let's let Bella speak for herself, okay? I'm not going to paraphrase and mansplain her reasoning to you until afterwards. I'm going to let her speak for herself. I'm not that girl, Edward, the one who gets married right out of high school like some small town hick who got knocked up by a boyfriend. Do you know what people would think? Do you realise what century this is? People don't just get married at 18. Not smart people. Not responsible, mature people. I wasn't going to be that girl. That's not who I am. I don't know where to start. Let's start with in the context of the story. Bella, you are that girl, bitch. You're that girl. You fell in love with high school. This is the man you want to marry. If you want to do it someday and you know you're going to be with him forever, you might as well do it right out of high school. And I just also hate, in a real world context, the disparaging way she talks about people who do this. She's talking about the way that people would judge her, but the only reason that she thinks people would judge her like that is because she is the judgiest bitch of them all. Okay, first of all, just the use of some small town hick who got knocked up by a boyfriend. As if, like, it's so weird. It's so weird that Bella thinks that she can be this in love with someone and have found her soulmate, but other people around her who are the same age can't have done exactly the same thing. just because their boyfriends aren't vampires, I guess. It's really disparaging. And then she goes on to say that people don't get married at 18 if they're smart, responsible, and mature. Which there is a discussion to be had there, I guess, but it's not like people don't do that every day. People who are otherwise smart, responsible, and mature. It's going to be offensive to somebody who read this, I can assure you. The fact of the matter is, Bella does in fact go on to do this exact thing. So what does this say about anything? It's like Stephanie Meyer just wanted her to have these morals so that she appeared to be smart, responsible, and mature, but then she just goes ahead and does it anyway. But I don't think it's very smart, responsible, or mature to jump into a decision about being a blood-drinking monster for the rest of eternity, but Bella doesn't seem to have as many qualms about that decision. So what does that say about her? It's in this chapter that the Cullens finally decide to do something about the deaths that are happening in Seattle, and it's not out of any sort of moral responsibility or protectiveness over the humans that live there. It's because they think it's becoming too big of a problem that soon the Volturi are going to become involved, and that might prompt the Volturi to pay them a visit, seeing as they're so close, and see that Bella is not a vampire yet, and just stir up a whole bunch of trouble for them specifically and affect their lives. So that's the only reason that they act on it. You know it by now, the Cullens are all selfish pricks, and I have a bee in my bonnet about it. So seeing as how we think we're going to be dealing with newborn vampires, we now get Jasper's backstory, because he was in like the newborn wars back in the day. I don't really have anything interesting to say about Jasper's backstory, really. But it was in this chapter that I came across this little snippet of dialogue right here. Jasper's describing, I think, the first time that he saw vampires IRL, and he says, even the little black-haired girl whose features were clearly Mexican was porcelain in the moonlight. And I guess I've never really registered it before, but Stephanie Meyer actually just whitewashes people when they become vampires. And I just don't know how it works. I had assumed before this that people with a darker complexion, when they became vampires, you know how people go pale when they're sick? Maybe there was that kind of a vibe going on, like the rosiness goes out of their cheeks or whatever. But no, Stephanie Meyer just full on whitewashes people who become vampires now, I guess. And it's, I mean, oh God, I'm off again. I'm going to be off again. I mean, it's a little bit racist, isn't it, right, guys? That supposedly when you're a vampire, you become really, really beautiful, and vampires are exclusively white. And it's probably been said before, but this was the first time that I fully grasped it as a fully functioning adult, and it's kind of a weird thing to realise, in all honesty. Chapter 14. The Cullens decide to ask some of their other vampire friends to come and help them confront the newborns. And Bella doesn't like the idea because she's afraid that somebody's going to get hurt. I couldn't stand this, Bella says. The idea that someone might not come back. What if it was Emmett, so brave and thoughtless that he was never the least bit cautious? Or Esme, so sweet and motherly that I couldn't even imagine her in a fight? Or Alice, so tiny, so fragile looking? Or, what I couldn't even think the name, consider the possibility. This is an annoying list anyway. It just goes on and just lists characteristics of the characters that have already been harped on to the nth degree. The other thing about this is like, just fuck Carlisle and Rosalie, I guess. Fuck Jasper. We don't care about those guys. These are the Cullens that Bella would be concerned about getting hurt and losing. That's the downside of making an annoying list like that. Stephanie, if you're looking for writing tips in the future. Bella's worried about Edward getting hurt during this conflict, and he's going out to hunt. He tells her that Jasper had put forward the suggestion that maybe they feed on humans, because obviously human blood makes them stronger than animal blood ever could, right? I just wrote a poem by accident, and that's going to really annoy me hearing it. Bella isn't exactly averse to the idea because she wants Edward to have the utmost advantage. And it's not because she's got a strategic war mind or anything like that. It's just because she's selfish and she doesn't want Edward to get hurt. She says, I shuddered, realizing I was willing to have a stranger die to protect him. I was horrified at myself, but not entirely able to deny it either. She does it all the time. Innocent people die all the time around her, and as long as it doesn't affect her or anyone that she loves, she's not bothered. At least she's just being honest about it this time. Stephanie Meyer acts like it's this complete new thing, though, and I don't think anybody who's reading this is surprised at this point. Everyone has their exams at school, and Stephanie Meyer actually skips ahead to the next afternoon, and I was genuinely shocked by this. I was expecting a play-by-play of Bella's exams and a rundown of how she thought she'd done, like I was her classmates, and she was my neurotic seat neighbour. Bella's thinking about being a vampire, getting married, the many choices that she's going to have to make in the coming weeks. And she thinks about the fact that she could just go to Carlisle and he would probably change her because it'd be the smartest thing to do. But she says, there was something about Edward being the one to make the choice, to want to keep me enough that he wouldn't just allow me to be changed. He would act to keep me. It was childish, but I like the idea that his lips would be the last good thing I would feel. Even more embarrassingly, something I would never say aloud. I wanted his venom to poison my sister. It would make me belong to him in a tangible, quantifiable way. I'm not sure what I want to say about this. I'm not even sure how to articulate what I'm about to say about this. In some way that I could probably write an essay about, given the time that I do not have, this quote indefinitely proves my theory that Edward turning Bella into a vampire is a sex metaphor and his venom is cum. That's it. End of video. Oh my god, I think it is actually the end of the video. Oh no, luckily we do have another note so I don't have to end on cum. Jacob pulls up. At this point, Jacob does know that Bella is planning on becoming a vampire at some point and that the impending danger is probably causing her to rush that decision a little bit. And so at the end of this chapter, Jacob does, in fact, manipulatively drop the L-bomb. I think he does genuinely care about her, to be fair, and he wants her not to become a vampire because he thinks that would mean that he would hate her just on sight. Just random penny drops. Hate my best friend now. So he doesn't want that to happen, and he wants Bella to have a normal life. He and Edward are like united on that one front. So I think that this declaration of love comes from a place basically of desperation and maybe of just wanting to tell her before she is gone from his life forever, as he suspects she will be. I don't necessarily disagree with this happening in the plot. I think it's Bella's reaction to it more than anything that is what eventually drives me fucking insane. I'm going to do chapter 15 as well because we've not covered a lot of ground here. And chapter 15 is a hefty one, so let's get into it. Bella is speechless in the face of Jacob's confession, and this conversation happens. Do you think you could behave yourself a little better at least? I asked, irritated. No, I don't. You decide, Bella. You can have me the way I am, bad behaviour included, or not at all. I stared at him frustrated. That's mean. So are you, says Jacob. That pulled me up short, and I took an involuntary step back. He was right. If I wasn't mean, and greedy too, I would tell him I didn't want to be friends and walk away. It was wrong to try to keep my friend when that would hurt him. I didn't know what I was doing here, but I was suddenly sure that it wasn't good. You're right, I whispered. Oh, fucking hell, I wish I'd have cut it off at 14, to be honest with you. I hate everything about this. Again, I just hate everything about this. Let's go through it. So, Jacob's like touching her in intimate ways, and now that Bella truly acknowledges the way that he feels about her, it's something that she's not comfortable with right now. She doesn't want him to do. And he's like, no, Bella, me inappropriately touching you when you have a boyfriend and have said no is just part of my personality, and you're going to have to accept that or never ever see me again, which is very mature of him, I must admit. And then she describes his behaviour as mean, which I would go a little bit more extreme than that, but Bella can deal with this traumatic experience in whatever way she sees fit. So Jacob says that she's mean. And then Bella, instead of just immediately cutting off the friendship, because nothing is worth this, you could work through him having feelings and wait for them to go away and maybe be stronger friends for it. But him refusing to respect your boundaries is just a no-no. It would be a no-no if he hadn't admitted his feelings for you. It would be a no-no if he didn't even have feelings for you. It would be a no-no whoever he was. Male, female, friend, older, younger, I don't care. This is not a boundary that you can just be crossing willy-nilly, boy, okay? But no, Bella agrees with him because I guess this is the way that Stephanie Meyer feels. The outcome is the same. Like, these two shouldn't be friends anymore. Bella should walk away, but it's because the friendship is now unhealthy. It's crossing her boundaries, and it is hurting him on a lesser scale. The reason that she walks away should not be because she's being selfish by wanting to be this man's friend. He's being selfish by pressuring her into being more than that and not just accepting it for what it is. Fuck me, guys. I didn't realize it was this chapter. Oh my god. Right, you ready? Deadpan expression. Deadpan. Let's go. I present to you the moment that Jacob Black lost us all forever. He still had my chin, his fingers holding too tight till it hurt, and I saw the resolve form abruptly in his eyes. No, I started to object, but it was too late. His lips crushed mine, stopped my protest. He kissed me angrily, roughly, his other hand gripping tight around the back of my neck, making escape impossible. I shoved against his chest with all of my strength, but he didn't even seem to notice. I mean, Jacob assaulted Bella. A minor assault, maybe, if you can call any assault minor, but an assault nonetheless. I mean, she started to say no before he kissed her, but maybe he missed that. Maybe he was reading signals wrong. I understand that some people think it's not romantic to ask permission for a kiss, and so maybe I could let that slide. But Bella very clearly states that she's pushing against his chest, and this is a clear indication that somebody is not into the embrace, and Jacob continues. And so this is it's assault, baby. That's just what it is. We're going to stick around in this scene for a little bit longer, just in case it wasn't bad enough. I grabbed at his face, trying to push it away, failing again. He seemed to notice this time, though, and it aggravated him. His lips forced mine open, and I could feel his hot breath in my mouth. That's horrible. Mate, I swear, like, every time I read the Twilight books, apart from for some reason, the first one's pretty iconic in my mind, but then the rest of them just fade into nothingness, especially these last two. And by the time it's been like a month between me reading them, they're gone and I don't remember anything. So this is like fresh for me again, and that was horrendous. So maybe again, the first time Maya does say that Jacob doesn't seem to notice that Bella is pushing him, which could be, I guess, a side effect of his superior strength, which, you know, maybe that's an excuse, but also at the same time, if you know you have superior strength and you wouldn't notice somebody trying to stop you from assaulting them, maybe you just shouldn't be kissing people willy-nilly then. Maybe this is a time when asking to kiss someone would actually be rather appropriate. Jacob. But the fact that she says that the fact that Bella was trying to push him away aggravated him, like, I don't know whether she meant that like incensed him and that gave him like more passion and more drive to try harder. But aggravated are for me negative connotations. Like he's getting angry because you won't let him kiss you right now. Is that? Acting on instinct, I let my hands. Oh God. I let my hands drop to my side and shut down. I opened my eyes and didn't fight, didn't feel, just waited for him to stop. I'm not going to dwindle on that because that is horrendous. That is awful, and I'm sorry that we just all had to read that. But that's a genuine response that people have to this, to worse things than this. And the fact that Stephanie Meyer could write it so accurately into the book makes me feel that there's no way she didn't know that that's what she was writing, right? There's no way that she could be that clueless about this. I don't know. Maybe she is. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit again. Let's move on. We've got one more little bit from this section. As he pressed his lips softly to mine again, once, twice, a third time, I pretended I was a statue and waited. So even after he realizes that she's completely disengaged from the whole thing, Jacob carries it on for so long that there's absolutely no way that any of us can excuse it, right? That it's acceptable anymore, that there's any way he can say that he didn't know, or that like it was in the heat of the moment of whatever. Anything that would like soften this in any way is gone, is out the window, girls. Oh God, oh, this just got so heavy so quickly. That was actually really upsetting, and we're all triggered. We're all triggered right now. Let's all hold hands and be triggered together, guys. Jacob then goes on to gaslight Bella about what just happened, which is crazy. He says, "Oh, come on, that had to be better than kissing a rock." "Not even remotely close," I told him coldly. He pursed his lips. "You could just be saying that." "But I'm not." That seemed to bother him for a second, but then he perked up. "You're just mad. I don't have any experience with this kind of thing, but I thought it was pretty incredible myself." This is so gross. Maybe Maya told herself that this is him trying to convince himself that Bella's into him, but obviously it comes across as gaslighty, being like, "Oh, you liked it. You're just mad because I made you desire someone who wasn't your boyfriend," or whatever. Also, he says that he thought the kiss was pretty incredible, but at no point did she ever kiss him back. It's stated directly in the text that she, not once did she move her lips against his or anything like that. So Jacob's going to be really blown away when he gets a real kiss, guys. They have a little argument about it. Obviously, Bella punches Jacob, which is like good for her, love it. She breaks her hand, so the narrative punishes her for doing this, but we take what little victories we can in this barren wasteland. Jacob says, "Next time you want to hit me, use a baseball bat or a crowbar, okay?" And I'm just saying that could have been a really great setup in a different book. They go home. Bella tells Charlie about what happens, and Charlie turns around to Jacob and says, "Good for you." A lot of people hate Charlie after this, and I cannot blame them. I want to put my little 2p in and say that this is actually, I feel really out of character for Charlie. The way that he's been so protective over Bella in the other books, even though he does like Jacob, I feel like at least a stern word, like a threat for next time maybe, would have been more in keeping with Charlie's character. But I don't know what Stephanie Meyer was thinking here, because she goes for the whole like sexist idea of dads being really protective of their daughters and stuff like that, right? But Charlie just lets Jacob assault Bella because I don't know why, because he doesn't like Edward, which makes loads of sense. Jacob assaulting Bella isn't going to make her like him anymore, Charlie. Come on now. I know you're an idiot who tried to microwave metal, but I really thought you would have had more of an idea about human relations than this. This is where Renee left you. So that's the end of that uncomfortableness. And we're going to put a full stop to it right here, okay? Because the fact of the matter is that Stephanie Meyer does not see what just happened as an assault in the way that we all clearly understand that it was, right? And so in order to continue on with any kind of review of this narrative without bringing it up every 5 minutes, I'm going to have to continue as if an assault did not just take place, and that Jacob, just in the heat of the moment, made a mistake and kissed Bella. She wasn't into it and he backed off. She punched him. They're even, and they've kind of made up, I guess. Bella's still mad at the moment, but she'll promise you, we all know, girls, that she's going to get over it because it's Bella fucking Swan. So I'm going to erase what just happened from my mind, or rewrite the narrative so that it's a lot more acceptable than it was, and just move on with my day. And I think that's what the rest of you should do as well. Jacob takes Bella home. She's got a broken hand or whatever. She calls Edward while Jacob is in the house talking to Charlie. She tells Edward that she punched him, and he says, "Good." And she says, "I wish I'd hurt him. I didn't do any damage at all." "I can fix that," Edward offered. "I was hoping you'd say that." There was a slight pause. "That doesn't sound like you," he said, wary now. "What did he do?" "He kissed me," I growled. All I heard on the other end of the line was the sound of an engine accelerating. In the other room, Charlie spoke again. "Maybe you ought to take off, Jake," he suggested. "I think I'll hang out here if you don't mind." Honestly, everything that just happened aside, Chad move from Jake. I don't know how I feel about Edward being jealous and coming over and basically threatening Jacob. In my situation, I would be like, I handled this myself and it's over, and I just want to be picked up and have it done with. Bella obviously wants Edward to come over and kill Jacob, so I guess I'm fine with it. I think it's kind of hot that Jacob is not remotely asked that Edward is coming over here to fight him, and he's just kind of standing in Charlie's living room waiting for him, like, "So's the baseball on?" I think it's a little bit disrespectful that like Charlie's there and Charlie thinks he's gonna have these two like one massive teenage boy and one scary teenage boy fighting in his living room. That's a little bit disrespectful on Jake's part, but I can let it slide because Charlie was a dick 5 minutes ago. I am going to leave it there because I have stuff to do on Animal Crossing. And that's just where my life is at right now. So the rest of the monster is getting chugged and I'm saying goodbye to you. We will pick this up next time.